Imagine a factory capable of turning a fragile flower into thousands of liters of crystal clear oil every single day. Now think about this. For every ton of sunflower seeds, only a tiny fraction becomes oil. And even so, global production still surpasses millions of liters every year. Yes, you heard that right. Millions of liters a year. How can something so small and so light drive such a massive industry? Today you're about to discover the engineering hidden behind every drop of sunflower oil. And before we go any further, welcome to the channel, Factories and Facts. Here, we open the doors to industry and show you what really happens behind processes that seem simple, but conceal fascinating technology. So get ready. What you're about to see will completely change the way you look at something so common in everyday life. And before we dive into this impressive process, here's one curious detail. In our last episode about canola oil, we showed how a tiny seed can contain an entire world of technology. But the sunflower holds completely different secrets, and far more surprising ones. From the harvest to the extraction tanks, passing through machines that crush hundreds of pounds per minute, you'll see why making oil is almost like cutting and polishing a liquid crystal. So get ready, because this video is about to shed light on a process you never would have imagined. And before the next stage, take a moment to subscribe here to the channel, Factories and Facts. And tell me, what other type of oil we buy at the grocery store do you think hides the most unexpected process of all? Sunflower oil begins long before the factory. It starts out in the fields, in vast plantations that look like yellow seas swaying in the wind. Each flower works like a small natural power plant, producing oil-rich seeds. But the path to the perfect seed is far more demanding than most people realize. To begin with, there is a huge difference between the sunflower used for oil production and the one you find in bags of roasted seeds. The varieties grown for industry have less hull, more kernel, and a much higher oil content. And that genetic difference completely changes the seed's fate once it reaches the factory. Cultivation also follows a near-surgical schedule. Farmers monitor the soil, the temperature, and even the direction of the wind to decide the ideal moment to plant. Sunflowers need abundant sunlight, moderate moisture, and soil that drains well without drying out too quickly. All of this ensures a fuller seed with a higher yield during extraction. And there's more. When they are young, sunflowers turn throughout the day to follow the sun, which is how they got their name. And that allows them to absorb energy in an astonishing way, producing more uniform seeds. Few people know that this behavior, called heliotropism, directly influences the quality of the harvest. When the right moment arrives, enormous harvesters go into action. They cut the dried flower heads and remove the seeds in one continuous motion. It is almost hypnotic. Tons of seeds being released every minute, pouring into massive metal compartments. From there, trucks carry everything to pre-processing facilities, where the seed begins its true industrial journey. But before any giant machine can crush or press the sunflower, each tiny seed must be cleaned, dried, and sorted. The first stage is cleaning. Air currents, vibrating screens, and industrial magnets remove leaves, bits of stem, dust, and even small metal fragments that may have come from the harvest itself. Then comes drying. The seeds arrive with varying moisture levels, and that is a problem. If they are too wet, they can mold. If they are too dry, they crack easily and reduce yield. That is why they pass through large heated tunnels that bring moisture down to specific levels. It is like preparing a raw material for a delicate process. The water balance inside each seed directly affects how much oil will be extracted. Once the seeds begin to reach the ideal standard, they enter an impressive stage: density sorting. Here, machines with controlled airflows make lighter seeds float while heavier seeds move forward. The lighter ones, usually empty or low in nutrients, are discarded. The heavier ones, true natural oil tanks, move on to the next phase. It is such a precise classification that many factories can predict how much oil will be extracted before crushing even begins. This process also destroys a common myth. Many people believe every sunflower seed is the same. In reality, within an entire harvest, only part of it becomes high-quality oil. The rest becomes animal feed, biomass, or industrial byproducts. And this strict control is essential because the factory needs consistent seeds to keep yield stable. If one batch arrives with too much variation, the entire process, temperature, pressure, and press speed, has to be recalibrated. After going through all this natural screening, the seeds are stored in giant silos, where they wait for the moment they enter the heart of the factory. And here is a fascinating detail. Even after being cleaned and graded, the seeds still release heat internally because of residual biological activity. That is why industrial fans run non-stop to prevent large volumes from overheating and losing quality before pressing. It is a detail that goes unnoticed, but it determines whether the final oil will be clear and pure or dark and unpleasant in taste. With each stage of this initial process, the seed moves closer to releasing its oil. Now it is clean, dry, separated by density, and stored under ideal conditions. The next step is brutal and fascinating: turning hard seeds into a hot, oily mass ready to be pressed. But before we step inside the crushing area, let me ask you something. Did you have any idea there were this many stages before extraction even begins? Stay with me, because what comes next reveals the most dramatic moment in production, where colossal machines literally squeeze millions of seeds in search of every possible drop. Now we enter the heart of the factory, where the sunflower seed stops being just a hard grain and begins to take the shape of oil. This is where huge, noisy, and precise machines work like mills of pure energy, turning tons of seeds into a hot, glossy paste. It all begins with the initial crushing stage. Steel rollers compress each seed until it splits completely open. The goal is not to extract the oil yet, but to open the way for heat and pressure to work far more efficiently. After this first crushing stage comes what many consider the raw material's initiation: cooking. Large heated cylinders, called conditioners, rotate continuously as the ground seeds pass through them. The temperature rises in a controlled way to break down the seed's internal structures and release the oil trapped inside. And here is an almost poetic detail. The more uniform the temperature inside that cylinder, the clearer and purer the final oil will be. It is such a critical detail that sensors monitor those fluctuations second by second. Once the mass is hot and uniform, it moves on to the star of the factory, the continuous press. Imagine a giant metal screw spinning inside a narrow tube. As the mass moves forward, the space keeps tightening and the pressure climbs to extreme levels. The result? The oil begins to run out through narrow openings, while the solid residue, the well-known sunflower meal, is pushed out. That meal, by the way, has high nutritional value and is used in animal feed, so nothing goes to waste. And here is another interesting detail. Some presses can extract up to 70% of the total oil in this first mechanical stage alone. But it is not over yet. Even after pressing, a good portion of the oil remains trapped in the meal. And that is where the chemical process comes in. Simple to explain, but impressive to watch. Factories use a solvent called hexane, which has the ability to pull the remaining oil out of the fibers. It all happens inside large enclosed chambers, where the meal is washed with the solvent. Then this mixture goes through an evaporation stage that separates the hexane from the pure oil. It is so efficient that total yield can reach an astonishing 98%. And if you are wondering why sunflower oil does not come out with a strong smell or a dark color, the answer lies in a stage called degumming. Here, the crude oil is heated and mixed with water to separate the natural gums that make the liquid look cloudy. This is the moment when the oil begins to take on that golden appearance you recognize on the grocery store shelf. This entire process is monitored in real time by sensors and digital control panels. Any change in pressure, temperature, or flow can indicate that something is not working as it should. In some factories, operators can identify problems just by listening to the vibration of the press, a kind of industrial hearing trained over many years. Now tell me this, which part of this process has impressed you the most so far? Go ahead and share your thoughts in the comments. And while you are there, let me know where in the world you are watching from. That helps Factories and Facts see just how far our content is traveling. And now let's move into refining, where crude oil gains flawless color, aroma, and purity before it reaches the bottle sitting in your kitchen. The oil that comes out of the extraction stage is still far from the golden, transparent liquid you see on the shelf. It reaches the refining sector carrying microscopic impurities, solid particles, natural pigments, and even odors left over from pressing. This is where the factory shifts into maximum precision mode, almost as if it were polishing a precious metal. Giant tanks, gleaming pipelines, and digital controls create an environment where every milliliter of oil is purified with almost surgical efficiency. The first step in this industrial polishing process is neutralization. Crude oil contains free fatty acids that can leave an unpleasant taste or shorten its shelf life. That is why it is mixed with a mild alkaline solution that reacts with those acids and forms tiny solid particles. Those particles are removed by centrifugation, leaving the oil more stable and far more pleasant in flavor. It may sound simple, but it demands total precision. If too much reagent is added, the oil loses yield. If too little is used, the final flavor is compromised. After that comes bleaching, one of the most visually striking phases of the production line. The oil passes through large tanks filled with a special type of activated clay capable of capturing dark pigments, traces of metals, and unwanted odors. It is almost as if the clay were acting as a giant mineral filter. Once everything passes through, the oil emerges with a much more uniform golden color. And here is a surprising detail. Even if the oil looks transparent inside the tank, its true color can only be perceived when it is illuminated in very thin layers, which is why laboratories use narrow tubes to assess its hue. And then we reach the stage that defines sunflower oil's signature neutral aroma, deodorization. Here, the oil is heated to extremely high temperatures while a stream of steam carries away the volatile compounds responsible for strong smells and flavors. It is a critical moment because excessive heat can oxidize the oil. That is why the entire operation takes place in vacuum chambers, a controlled environment that allows high temperatures without compromising quality. The result is a pure, stable liquid with a neutral taste, perfect for frying or general cooking use. With the oil now refined, the factory moves on to the most hypnotic stage of the entire production process: bottling. Robotic lines turn empty bottles into perfectly aligned rows that move forward as if they were marching. Sensors detect any deformed bottle and automatically remove it from the line. The oil flows into each container with pinpoint precision, while the caps are screwed on at high speed. Modern factories can fill hundreds of bottles per minute, and what looks like chaos to a first-time viewer is actually an extremely coordinated industrial ballet. And while the production line is moving at a relentless pace, take a quick look below and drop a like. That helps factories and facts reach even more curious minds who love seeing how the world behind the machines really works. And now that we have the golden oil, clean and bottled, there is one final essential step before it reaches your home: distribution, full of fascinating details and global impact. With the oil refined, bottled, and ready for consumption, a journey begins that is every bit as complex as the stages inside the factory. The distribution of sunflower oil depends on a vast network of trucks, logistics hubs, cargo ships, and tight deadlines. Every bottle has to maintain its integrity from the filling line to the shelf, and while it may seem simple, it involves surprisingly sophisticated logistics engineering. Factories rely on systems that monitor temperature, humidity, and even vibration during transport, because any drastic change can compromise entire batches. One little known fact is that sunflower oil is so valuable that some countries treat its logistics as a strategic part of the national economy. In some parts of Eastern Europe, for example, sunflower has the same commercial weight as crops like wheat and corn. In other countries, the export of sunflower meal, that solid residue left after extraction, represents one of the main inputs for animal feed. In other words, nearly every part of the sunflower becomes a useful product, reinforcing its economic importance around the world. And it does not stop there. Sunflower oil also has environmental significance. Its seeds and byproducts are widely used in biodiesel production, serving as an alternative that helps reduce reliance on fossil fuels. In some factories, modern boilers burn the sunflower husks themselves to generate thermal energy, creating a sustainable cycle that powers a large part of the production process. It is the idea of a circular economy working in real life, a byproduct feeding the very process that created it. Another surprising fact is that sunflower oil can tell stories about the soil where it was produced. Researchers can identify specific chemical traces that reveal characteristics of the climate and even the fertility of certain regions. That is why some premium oils carry certifications of origin, much like fine wines and specialty coffees. It is not just food, it is science, geography, and technology bottled into an everyday product. And after this entire journey, from the field to the lab, from crushing to bottling, we reach the final moment. The oil arrives on the shelves of supermarkets, local stores, commercial kitchens, and homes around the world. It is a vast cycle, often invisible, yet one that supports an essential part of modern nutrition. And now that you know this process from the inside, you may never look at a bottle of oil the same way again. Before we wrap up, I want to know, what was the most unexpected part of this journey for you? Tell me in the comments what surprised you the most. And of course, if you are not subscribed to Factories and Facts yet, now is the perfect time to join the channel and keep exploring the hidden world of industry. There is a lot more coming that you will not want to miss. And if you think you have already seen it all, then you have no idea what factory we revealed in our last episode. It should already be showing up on your screen. Click it and come with me to uncover one more hidden secret here on Factories and Facts. A big hug. I will see you there.